There's no doubt that of all our empirical conquests, the one country that's probably had the greatest impact on our food culture is India.
Memsahibs returning home from the Raj brought back with them a love of Indian cuisine and ingredients, which they duly incorporated into a host of Anglo-Indian hybrid dishes. But with the arrival of many Indian and Pakistani immigrants in the 50s, 60s and 70s, our love of all things Indian was to develop even further.
Asif Ali is the third generation of his family to run the Sheesh Mahal, a landmark Indian restaurant in the West End of Glasgow.
Because Britain went out and explored the known world and developed an empire, it helped my family to come into Britain and make a life for themselves, and the only thing they could do was to cook.
So you've come to Glasgow, have you? Pretty grim, isn't it?
Well, he's not going to get a job for Glasgow Tourist Board, is he? But the cold, wet, windy streets of Scotland's second city were remarkably receptive to these new flavours from overseas. And the recipes concocted by Asif's dad, Ali, proved a big hit.
The amazing thing was that the Glaswegians took to curry like ducks to water. Because the weather is so dark and rainy, the people are the exact opposite. They're warm and generous. So when they came in and tasted it, they were addicted. They loved it, and we've never looked back since.
But back in 1971, when a customer didn't like what he was served up, his dad's quick thinking led to a curry that has become synonymous with the success of Indo-British cuisine across the country.
Yep, chicken tikka masala has numerous reported claims of origin. But as far as Asif's concerned, it was born in Glasgow.
My father tells me it was a typical Glaswegian night. It was pouring down outside, it was dark, and a bus driver came off duty and he had a terrible day, so sat down and ordered a chicken curry. Chicken curry came, he sent it back to the waiter. He says, it's dry and I want something not as dry. So at that time Dad had an ulcer and he was enjoying a plate of tomato soup. So Dad says, why don't you put some tomato soup into the curry and put some spices, and that'll give him a wee bit different flavour. So the chef did that and sent it back to the table, and he absolutely loved it. And he came back the next day and the day after, and he brought his friends, and eventually we decided we will put it on the menu.
And with that, an Indian food legend was born.
Its success saw Ali refine the recipe, ditching the soup for fresh tomatoes, cream and a cacophony of spices. These days, it's thought that 1 in every 7 curries ordered is a chicken tikka masala. In many people's eyes, it's now our national dish, but it's not stopped it going abroad, even to India.
India is growing so fast. There's so many tourists coming to Britain, and they want to take away the taste of Britain with them. So along with all the other British things, they take away the love of chicken tikka masala because it's unique to Britain.
Usually I'm the guinea pig at some point. Usually I come in here and they just say, there you go, try that, see how that goes. But it's one of my favourite dishes, Indian, and I love haggis as well.
I think there's many think that this is our home cooking now. You know, it's not the porridge anymore. It's chicken tikka masala. I think it's taken over from it for breakfast, lunch and dinner.
Well, I always think that curries are Scottish.
Once you start accepting different food, then it's not a huge leap to start accepting people. And when you start accepting people, you become more tolerant and more open as a society, and a much richer society. We're at the dawn of the Second British Empire. The First Empire went out and conquered through might. The Second British Empire is going out and conquering by cuisine.
the heart of rural England.
Like Glasgow, it might seem a long way from the heat and vibrancy of India, but it's also home to another British legend.
A product born out of the Raj that has for a long time put a bit of spice into the lives of not just Englishmen,
but people from all around the world.
The Australians say it's absolutely bonza on barbecues, the French claim it points up the piquancy of steak tartare, and there's nothing the Chinese like better than to dip their dim sum in it.
In fact, the product made here is something that keeps this town and county on the tip of just about everyone's tongue.
Lea and Perrins Worcestershire sauce.
And it has a long and illustrious history.
There are many theories as to how it came about, but legend has it that a fella called Lord Marcus Sandys started it when he was returning to Worcester from a jaunt in Bengal in 1835.
He'd obviously got a taste for the spicy stuff and went into a chemist's shop on the high street and handed over the recipe for a fish-based sauce he wanted made.
Mr. John Lee was behind the counter, and so was Mr. William Perrins. They had the knowledge and concocted the ingredients, making sure they kept a little bit back for themselves.
They tried it and, it was horrible. So they dispatched it to the cellars. Anyway, after about 2-3 years, they were clearing the cellars out, found this in the vaults, and dusted it off, brought it back up, tried it, eureka, that was it. Lea and Perrins sauce.
They began commercial production in 1837 and got the Royal Seal of Approval in 1904. Then, with the help of Edwardian explorers and colonists, the sauce found its way to foreign shores.
Today, it's a household name around the globe and has been copied more times than a Gucci handbag.
A bottle of love.
But nothing can beat a genuine Worcestershire-made product.
And that's because what happens behind these closed doors is a closely guarded secret.
The ingredients might be on the bottle for all to see.
Vinegar, molasses, sugar, shallots, anchovies, tamarinds, garlic, salt and spices are named on the label.
But the art of combining them is a very different matter.
It's all on a very need-to-know basis. In fact, it's said that only 4 people know the recipe at any one time.
And those that do aren't about to give it away.
Well, I'm afraid I can't divulge anything tapped into the work at all. It's not their policy to discuss anything at all.
Surely you can tell us what order the ingredients go in?
No, that wouldn't do at all.
How long does it take to mature?
That's another thing I wouldn't discuss with them, sorry.
What about the strange markings on the barrel? Surely you can tell us that.
It appertains to the ingredients that have gone in, but there again, I'm afraid I'm reluctant to discuss any further at all.
Oh, you spoiled sport!
When it comes to Lea and Perrins, there's no doubt that the maturing process is key.
It's the anchovies that really give it its fabled aroma.
These are left to age for 4 years, and they achieve a ripeness which makes even brave men blench. When the sauce has been created, it must be left to mature for several months, but not left in peace. It must be given a regular shaking to remind it of its obligations. Bert Ricketts has been shaking the sauces for 20 years.
Wow, that man must have some stamina.
Worcestershire sauce in bulk gives off a bouquet that commands respect.
It might require a gas mask at this stage, but once matured, its taste is one that's seduced the world.
So much so, some believe it to be the British food that's had the most impact on international cuisine.
And without the Empire, the world might never have been able to experience its magic. The British Empire has brought us ingredients once thought beyond our dreams to our very fingertips.
But one curry in particular celebrates the huge variety on offer better than any other.
Now, the next dish that we're going to cook for you is from the far-flung corners of the British Empire. In fact, a place called Western Sumatra.
This dish, the beef rendang, is one of the tastiest dishes to be found anywhere on the planet.
Also, I've heard, a favourite, Dave?
Yes?
With a certain frog that wears a crash helmet. Ring ding 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 ding. We're joking. We're only joking. This quality cut of British beef might look like the centrepiece, but the real star here is what we cook it in. The first thing that we have to do, Dave, is it not?
The spice paste.
Indeed.
Let's get ready on that gravy train to taste.
Oh.
Lump of ginger. Don't need to be too prescriptive.
Now, I'm going to take 2 lemongrass, remove the outer layers until we get to the nice soft white bit in the middle, the core of it, and then we're going to cut that into 4 centimetre, about.
Ginger. And then galangal. Galangal, well, it's kind of like a cross between, taste-wise, it seems to me like a cross between ginger and lemongrass. What's amazing about this dish is that you cook it so long that the coconut milk goes back to oil, and the oil does act as a preservative. So the rendang was a sort of dish that people, when they were travelling, could take with them. And actually, it does keep for like a few days in the fridge. Leave it in the freezer for a month, it seems to be better. Leave it a month after that, it seems to get better still. Galangal goes in, lots.
Now we're going to have 6 cloves of garlic.
And 3 long red chillies. We're going to have this quite spicy.
Oh, yeah.
Let's leave the seeds in then, shall we?
Why not?
If you don't want it so spicy, take the seeds out. We want it spicy. It's a beef rendang, for goodness sake. Look at that, hey?
Take 3 medium onions or 2 large onions, peel them and quarter them.
This dish has been primarily associated with the Minangkabau people of Western Sumatra. Yeah, no, it's true. And you know, CNN did a survey and 35,000 respondents throughout the world defined rendang as being the tastiest dish on the planet. But to the Minangkabau people, the various elements in the rendang have significance.
Do they?
Yes.
They do.
Coconut, for instance, it relates to writers, artists and poets.
Oh, good, good.
Yes. The chili
yes.
is religious leaders.
Oh, well, very good.
The hotness represents the strictness of religious law, whilst everything else represents everything else. It's such is the importance of the Minangkabau people of Western Sumatra. Shall we process this? I've processed too much information for the moment. I'm having an overload.
You're having a bit of a Minangkabau, aren't you, son?
I must have to go mastermind again. All that remains now is to press a button. I dedicate this dish to the Minangkabau people of Western Sumatra.
Anyway, chuck steak. How can you process all that information and not be able to use a food processor? I rest me case.
Whoa! Loads of paste!
And blitz it to a paste as fine as you can possibly make. Fine! We need it fine! Woo! While Dave's doing that, we're going to cut about 1.5 kilos of chuck steak and then cut it into 3 centimetre squares.
Do you think that's fine enough?
No. That'll keep him occupied trying to work this thingy for the next 15 minutes. Not very good with things like that.
They are beautiful. Oh. Right, look at that. That's all spice and onions. Woo! This needs to be cooked for about 5 minutes. This is the heart of your rendang. Remember, the spirit of the Minangkabau is in this dish. You've got to show respect, cultural respect.
No, you do, you do.
Don't burn this, whatever you do. It's aromatic, isn't it?
It is.
In fact, I think I could put my dried spices in now, because dried spices you tend to cook into the dish. And I want 2 teaspoons of cumin. 1, 2, I'll do. 2 tablespoons of dried coriander. A teaspoon of turmeric.
Whoa. Oh, the smells.
And there's no need to sear this beef off first. Oh, just smother it in the spicy love.
Kaffir lime leaves. Fantastic. Now, whole tin of coconut milk.
You could use half-fat coconut milk if you wanted.
1 cinnamon stick. And then some water. About 400 mils should do.
There's a bit of a Thai thing going on. We go sweet and sour. I want 2 teaspoons of tamarind paste. You can use lemon juice, but it's really not as sour. But we need to temper that. So you could use 2 tablespoons of sugar. We've got palm sugar. I love it in this. Palm sugar, it's like a softer sweetness. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Absolute sense.
You know what I mean? It's like
there's a caramel vibe to it, isn't there? It's kind of like it's so lovely.
That's about 2 tablespoons, isn't it?
About that, mate. Yeah.
That'll melt down quite quickly. Seasoning: 2 tablespoons of soy sauce. It's savoury.
Right.
Teaspoon of salt. But that's it now. All you have to do is to cover it and let it simmer for at least 2.5 hours. Simmer. Keep an eye on it doesn't boil dry till those bits of beef are falling apart.
Everything's gentle now from the rendang.
2.5 hours might seem like a very long time for a curry.
But with so many ingredients in play, we'll need to give them as much time as possible to mingle and get to know each other.
The entire house is fragrant.
Oh, it's filled with the rendangness of gorgeousness.
You see the oil there?
Yes.
It's actually started to fry in itself. Right. Oh, a nice big bowl of rendang. Look at that. You know, Si, before we taste this, it is worth remembering a sense of occasion, as in that CNN poll, 35,000 people judged this to be the tastiest dish in the world. This just ain't any old supper.
No.
Oh.
Very,
very good. Maybe because it's beef and we're not used to really beef curries. And beef Asian dishes like this are thick and heavy. It has that quality of a hearty British stew. But it's got a few more hidden depth, hasn't it?
It certainly has that. This is absolutely superb. And I can well see why 35,000 people voted like they did.
Yeah. And the thing is, it's going to taste even better tomorrow. We do realise there are some dark sides to British history and Imperial Britain, but there's no getting away from the big positive that ends up on our dining tables. We've learnt a lot. We've experimented a lot with the food, and by crikey, we've brought home some fantastic dishes, of which this is certainly in the top 3.
Because of the legacy of empire, our country has undoubtedly evolved to accept and adopt